is a production of First Assembly of God, LLP, Durban Street, Wortmanville. We thank you for joining us. Indeed, it is a privilege that you invited us into your homes or wherever you view choices. The panel continued the discussion, Love Thy Neighbor as Thyself. We encourage you to stay tuned and be blessed.
It's a great privilege for us again to welcome you to this program, Choices. Wherever you view us from, we thank you for taking time off, and we pray that God will continue to bless. And as we continue this program on neighborliness, we trust that you will seek to be a good neighbor, and remember that your neighbor is not only those that you live next to, but all those whom you come into contact with. Call a friend, let them know that this program is on. God bless you. Stay tuned.
This evening we want to continue to examine the characteristics of neighborliness. Earlier we had postulated that neighborliness involves the sharing of time among neighbors. We said neighbors share the same value, and we had examined this in the context of marriage, friendship, and affection. Neighbors enjoy economic and business link. What we saw there was neighbors attempting to support and to enhance business among themselves. Neighbors share the same social space. We examined the concept of birthdays, parties, and we are going to examine also neighbors share the same cultural atmosphere. And these are so important. The exhibition of these characteristics, they're important in terms of the advancement and the development of our society, and therefore we want to examine again these characteristics of neighborliness. Gentlemen.
Thank you, Pastor Marcel. We have over the past few weeks really examined quite a few things, and it tells us that no man is really an island. We are so interlinked and so intertwined among ourselves and with each other. I grew up in Enmore, and Enmore is predominantly an Indian environment, and I've had the privilege of looking at the Negro side of Enmore against the Indian side of Enmore. And what amazed me quite a few times is how the cultures intertwine, the foods and the people, and sometimes even the music, how it mixed itself. And so you could have found that in one case, one family having a social event, and you go to that social event and you're not quite sure what kind of ethnicity that is representing that event. But it tells me that in an environment like Guyana, there's a great need for us to develop that concept of becoming one people, one nation, with one destiny. And so today we want to continue that discussion of neighbors sharing that social space and social link.
We call it social capital last week, and it is so critical. Somebody did a disservice, or not just one person, but a set of people did a disservice to this nation of focusing on our differences with the view of exploiting our differences, rather than focusing on our differences with the view to creating a greater togetherness, greater synergy. And this is what we need to see happening. And it is being done every single day in the village and in communities where people, culturally, you see the manifestation of this kind of synergy in our villages, in our communities. You see how Guyanese have really come together. And what we're saying is that we need to exhibit, where it is, we need to deepen it. Where it is not very strong, we need to posit it and really encourage it to grow and to become. Because this country, when we become one, as our motto declares, the Caribbean will hear from us in an unbelievable way. The rest of the world will hear from us in an unbelievable way. So we really have this responsibility, nay, a duty, to discover the power of neighborliness.
I couldn't agree more with you, Pastor. As we focus on our similarities, it is also a form of empowering each other. I remember growing up on the East Coast, in the villages, and it's like, people working together. I remember my father looking after the drains and the parapet, and as soon as he begins to do that, you see the next neighbor start, and the other neighbor start. So you see, they just interlinking with each other, empowering each other, and ensuring that the environment was clean, and that neighborly spirit was there. And so we really need to focus on it as we focus on our similarities instead of our differences, and empower each other.
When we talk about the cultural atmosphere, I think of the positiveness that can come out. I travel along these banks, and I'm amazed, especially on Sundays. You see the different ethnic groups gather together with one common objective. There's a bird-rearing atmosphere where you see men from different ethnicity with bird cages in their hands, and they gather together. It promotes, the atmosphere is there to promote unity and togetherness, and we can use that medium to empower each other. So I think this cultural atmosphere is so relevant in our context as Guyanese.
I born and grew in Lodge. I spent some time in Kitty, in East Rhineville. And I'll tell you something, years ago, I look at this togetherness. I look at how we respect our neighbors. I remember holidays, we will go over to our neighbors. We would sit down, we would play games, we will eat, we would share fun, have fun together. And somehow we have lost the art today. We need to get back to that place where we would respect our neighbors. Twist it and turn it. We are one.
Yeah.
We come from one Father, and we will have to learn to respect our neighbors. Again, I like how Proverbs chapter 27 verse 10 put it over. He said, "Thine own friend and thy father's friend forsake not, neither go into thy house in the day of thy calamity. For better is a neighbor that is near than a brother that is far off." The neighbors overlook our asset. They overlook our families. They're the ones who pay attention to what we have in our absence. And so, let's respect our neighbors again. Let's love them, and let's treat them the way we would treat ourselves.
Because of our ethnic differences, there are those who search deliberately to highlight and to create an atmosphere of mistrust. But in the community, for the people to work and to live, it is necessary for them to trust. And we have to go to a level where we hear those who attempt to highlight our differences and ignore those who are trying to do that. And continue what we've been practicing and trying to build for a long time in the communities. As a child, I remember we used to play church. And we had this pen, we used to mine stocks. We create this pen. And if we had an empty pen, those stocks inside, we used to try to create this church environment. And one of my neighbors came over, and he was an Indian, and it was his turn that day to do a special item. He doesn't go to church. And so he stood up and he started to sing Sholin Gay. And we wanted to know what is it. But it's just that he wants to be a part of this environment. And you find that in every community you go, you find that there is that need and that passion and that desire for us to enjoy our social space, and it is so necessary.
It's amazing, the role that acculturation plays in this whole concept of neighborliness. Acculturation basically has to do with people of a different culture accepting behaviors and patterns of another culture, and so there's a diffusion into their culture, and it's amazing. We see that in our mode of dress, particularly at certain when we have certain holidays and functions in our society. We see that in the kind of food that we consume. And only a couple of years ago, I can remember a lecturer from the university, a sociologist, was saying that he was traveling on the Essequibo River, and an Indian brother and a black brother also, they were in the boat and they decided to eat, some food while they were traveling. And he said, well, what amazed him is that the Indian brother, he took out some cook-up, and on the contrary, the black brother had some curry and roti. So, we see the whole thing about acculturation, because we have not seen anybody say, well, for example, look, cook-up is not part of our culture, so don't cook it in your house if you are not a good. People just accept, and that is the whole thing about neighborliness, because when you do that, you tend to expand, you tend to have a variety, and your views, is not limited, and so that's so powerful.
And an atmosphere of peace is also created when we link together.
Yeah.
That atmosphere of peace in a cricket team, our cricket team, we have people of all ethnicity, and that peace that comes, that unity, and it helps us to become stronger as teams as we play together, So neighborliness is not just about the person who lives next door to you, but everyone that you come into contact with into your sphere.
Referring to sports, I think sports is an excellent medium of cultural atmosphere. I can remember the World Cup when we had the privilege of having the World Cup here at the stadium, and I myself was a part of the audience, and to see the way people were blending together from the different ethnic groups, it was amazing. Added to that is the way people were dressed also. You couldn't have determine who is what, because people wearing the same mode of dress. So this whole thing about being enculturated, embracing each other's culture and living in harmony, our motto of being one people, one nation, one destiny. It harbors on the fact that we are a nation of 6 races, and so we need to learn to live and to embrace and to share with each other others as it relates to our cultural differences, so that we can live in harmony as a people.
For the first time last evening, coming down from the quarantine, I noticed there's a village. I can't remember the number. What is number 76? But there's a village they named Hong Kong. I never noticed that before. And so I was sitting next to some folks who hail from the quarantine, and they said, well, this was a Chinese enclave many years ago, so they named the village Hong Kong. So it's amazing. If we go, by the way, I noticed that there's a school and an area there named Messiah. It's amazing. I have to go and do some research about the roots there. They're very powerful. I want to tweak this discussion a little bit as we continue to explore and examine the notion of the impact of culture. Dress is a major part of culture. And I mean, we look and we see the power of dress. You and I, all of us here, and those of you who are viewing us, wherever you're viewing this in the Caribbean, I'm sure you observe the state of dress of folk today. Men used to use their pants to conceal their underwear. And when I was growing up, the unfortunate boys used to wear beret. Used to steal the girl's beret and cut 2 holes, and they used to wear a beret buckler, something like that we call it. You guys are familiar with that? A beret buckler. Now, you didn't want anybody to know that. So you'd pull your trousers up, and you have your beret at the bottom. That's none of your business, nobody's business. But today, people are actually flaunting underwear. So men have dropped their trousers below the crack, and you actually see that. You see the top of a brief or a boxer, and you also see the